Today's webinar is the seventh in our AI series. And this one is transforming employee manuals or any manual. So I come from the nuclear industry, the pulp and paper industry, and we had countless manuals, SOPs of all kinds. And what we're going to show you here today is how to take those documents and convert them into chatbots. Um, Actually, we're saying ChatGPT, but that's actually not the case. All of our previous webinars used ChatGPT, but today we're using a different model that's in our walled garden. So some companies have some very sensitive information, and what we want to show you today is that you can convert manuals into chatbots uh, within a walled garden, such that you don't have to make any external calls to ChatGPT or any of the other large language models. So I'm Gordon Jones, the Chief Operating Officer at Decisions, and with me today is my partner in crime, Derek Hippa, who
Hello,
is the director of
everybody.
our. Hey, Derek.
Hey,
Derek leads
Gordon.
our revenue ops team here at Decisions, and he's also our AI webinar master. Um, a couple plugs. We've got a training event coming up November 14th through 16th in Dallas. It's a 3-day event. We have a beginner track, we have a master class, so you can sign up on our website. Please go to decisions.com/events. Sign up. We'd love to have you there. We've got a big crowd signed up already. Couple other upcoming events. If you happen to speak Portuguese or you're down in Brazil, join us on the 19th of October for another webinar. Um, Next week, we'll be at the Gartner IT Symposium in Orlando. Come visit us at booth 132. Our CTO, Heath Oderman, will be there. A number of folks from our sales team will be there. I'll be there. We'd love to meet you in person and talk through this stuff. We have another webinar coming up in 2 weeks' time on October 26th. And in this webinar, we did an earlier webinar, a small piece on taking meeting transcripts and using AI, to do the usual things, right? Summarize and next steps. Well, we're taking that to the next level. We're going to showcase 10 different things you can do with meeting transcripts, and it's going to be a good one. So go ahead and sign up. You'll find it on our website. That's coming up in 2 weeks' time. Okay, this stands for in case you missed it, which I know now after 6 of these. But again, we've got a whole series of webinars on AI and other topics. All of this can be found at decisions.com/videos. So we've done within the ChatGPT series, we've done document extraction. So things like automating invoices, automating purchase orders, um, cleaning up ugly data, and creating chatbots with your own data. So a lot of cool webinars. Come find them on our video page on the website. We have a white paper we put together combining AI and decisions to do process automation, process orchestration. And throughout the webinar today, if you have any questions, just drop it in the Q&A, drop it in the chat. We'll either get to it live or certainly at the end. We'll ensure that we answer your questions. So the agenda today, I have a few slides to cover who we are at Decisions and what we do. Talk a little bit about generative AI, and vectors, embeddings, and vector databases are a big part of how all of this works. So we'll get into that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Derek, and he's going to show you how taking decisions, you can take any manual that you have, any document, and effectively turn it into a chat bot. So he'll walk through that, and we'll do a little Q&A. Again, if you have any questions, please ask. We'd love to talk about it. So first, what is Decisions? Decisions is a no-code business process automation platform with a rule engine, a workflow engine, and it's truly no code. And there's three common use cases we get involved in regularly. The first of those is a rule engine and decisioning. So the whole idea here is to get rules out of custom code, out of stored procedures, and put them in a graphical format that can be easily understood, updated, if not created by the people that know those business rules best. Um, we do a lot of work in areas like medical claims processing, insurance underwriting, loan origination. These are use cases that are very rules heavy, but there's lots of other use cases for things like data cleanup. The city of New York uses our rules engine for rules around social services, so things like unemployment benefits or food stamps. Roche Genentech is using us to clean up data coming from testing labs all over the world. A second use case that we get involved in regularly is to sit beside these large transaction systems. Think Salesforce, SAP, NetSuite, Oracle, to do those special cases, those special processes where you don't want to custom code your SAP system, but you've got a special customer in Japan that needs to be handled differently. We're ideal for those kinds of processes. We do great sitting within the Marcom stack, connecting applications like Zoom Info, like Salesforce to HubSpot, to OpenAI. Internally, we connect to about 17 different applications. We integrate, we orchestrate within these various applications. Taking that a step further is process orchestration, which is probably our best use case. So we integrate and automate between services, between applications, between databases. Every business process crosses application boundaries. We live in the cracks and automate between those. I'll also make a final plug. If you want to see more, please sign up for a demo on our website or email us at sales@decisions.com. We'd love to connect you with one of our engineers. Spend an hour showing you how you can use this no-code software development platform to build applications. Derek is going to dive into it a bit here today. You'll see under the hood, but it's best to do it on a demo, one-on-one. You can ask questions and take it in any direction you'd like. Okay, a bit about generative AI. I mean, we've all been reading what's happening. We're at the peak of inflated expectations. This is the Gartner hype cycle. So it's all over the news, and every day, every week, new things are advancing quickly. And even what we show you today, everybody's learning how to use it. And what I hope you get out of this webinar and some of the ones that we've done is the technology is good enough today to really help with process automation. So there's a lot of what you read is how it's going to be used in marketing. But from my perspective, what doesn't get talked about enough is how well this technology can be used for business process automation. So, I mentioned earlier, there's the things that it will do for product development or new revenue or marketing. But this middle section is where a lot of the use cases that we're showing you are valid. Worker augmentation, providing information faster to your workforce, and automating business processes. So, what have we learned using our platform and incorporating AI? Decisions is ideally suited to orchestrate and automate back and forth between these large language models. So we've learned through experience that, you often have to make multiple calls back and forth to fully automate a task, and we're an excellent platform for managing that orchestration and structuring the data such that the automation can continue within your systems. We also, as we'll show you shortly, provide a complete audit trail and governance. We can save everything that was sent to the model, what was returned, to ensure that you have an audit trail and governance to make sure that you're not letting things slip through the cracks. I will point out, even today, a lot of these vendors, they're SOC 2 Type 2, so OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, AWS, IBM. There are enterprise services that they provide access. You can set these things up not to save, that where the data will not be used to train their models. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about vector databases and embeddings because it's a key piece to the technology that you're about to see. So, because what we're going to be doing is taking a document. In our case, it's our employee handbook, right? It talks about benefits and employee rules. And in that document is a whole series of sentences, paragraphs. And what this technology does, this vector database and these large language models, you'll hear this term embeddings. So what it does is it takes a sentence like this and turns it into a long vector. In the example I think we're using today, something like 1,536 different numbers that live in multi-dimensional space. We all can think of an X and a Y, which is just two numbers, right? So you have the X and the Y. These vector databases, again, you're talking about 1,536. So when you take sentences and paragraphs, they live in this multidimensional space, and that's how this technology finds close matches. And this is the process that we're going to walk you through today. So on the right-hand side is the creation of these vectors. And then on the left-hand side is the searching. So what we're going to do, and Derek is going to show you, is we've taken our company manual, we've tokenized it, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. We tokenize it, we send it to a generative AI model, and then we save it in a vector database, which Decisions sits upon. So that's one half of the process. That's taking all of this information and putting it in a vector database that can be searched. The left-hand side is somebody with a question. You want to ask a question, so you type out a question. Same thing happens in reverse. You need to tokenize that question, send it to this generative AI model to create the vector, and then use that vector to search the database to come up with the closest match. So it should all make sense, a little more sense in a minute, but it's a two-step process. First is creating, and the second is querying for the information you're looking for. And just to get a sense, what we've done here is highlight what Decisions is doing. So we're doing all of the orchestration, the movement, the tokenization, and the generative AI model is creating the embeddings that get saved in a vector database. So the generative AI model is doing an important piece, but Decisions is doing all of the orchestration of the data back and forth and the tokenization to make all that possible. Okay, a bit more about vector data and metadata, and this is a key to what you're going to see today. So one of the downsides to these generative AI models is that they can hallucinate. But what we're going to show you today does not have that downside, because we're saving the vector and we're also saving metadata alongside of it. And the metadata that we're saving is the original data that was used to create the vector. So when Derek types in a question and we produce an answer, the answer is not the AI model creating an answer. We're pulling the closest sentence, the closest paragraph from the metadata. And I think that's a key distinction because there are certain industries, certain use cases where you want exactly what was in the document. You don't want the AI model typing out a solution that may or may not be correct. So we talked about tokenization, and there's some pre-processing that happens within the text. And so listed to the left, these are examples of things where, there might be a sentence or a paragraph typed out. Well, we now have a step within the decisions toolkit that lower cases, that tokenizes, removes punctuation, URLs, numbers, also removes stop words, things like the, and, a, words that really don't add anything to the vector. Um, and it makes it easier for the model to find a closest match. So there's a lot more of this. We're packaging all in a step to make it easy for our customers using the tool to do this pre-processing. Um, One thing I wanted to highlight, again, the right-hand side is the creation of the data, saving it, and the left-hand side is the searching. And there's different options for doing this kind of thing. The first is where you're training a model with data and it's going to answer the question. This is what ChatGPT, Google Bard, this is what these other models, these large language models are doing. They're great for brainstorming, for conversational, for writing poems. But if you want to trust it with data, it may not be the best model. Again, what we're going to show you today is um, is is saving metadata alongside the vectors, such that we're returning the actual original data itself. Okay, that was kind of the setup. Um, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Derek to take us through, and he's going to first show what this looks like from an end user perspective. So, how you would ask questions, get the answers. Then he's going to show you the admin, show how we govern it, some of the governance, some of the audit trails that we're creating, and then he's going to show you under the hood how it was all built within decisions.
All right, very good. All right, so currently what I'm showing here today is actually Decisions platform. So I'm currently within a dashboard, and you can see this is actually my local. So this is not a public URL. Everything that I'm going to be showing today is on my laptop. And what this view is kind of showing is actually the chat dashboard that a end user would interact with. So really just kind of like high level, you have the ability to add a new chat, which will kind of save like your history. So, we have this functionality here just so that, you can kind of keep a clean slate. And if you ever wanted to start fresh, you have the ability to do so. So like a previous chat session that I've had, you could see how the overall layout is set up. You have the ability to ask the question. You have the most recent Q&A, as well as the chat history below. So today, what we're going to show, we're going to start fresh. We're going to ask the bot a couple questions. I'll show you how it works. Again, like Gordon mentioned, this is on our decisions handbook. So really what this covers is information about decisions, benefits, PTO, company policy, and much more. So it's very cool.
Why don't you jump back to that, Derek, because I think this is important. This is the original document where all of the information is coming from. So every question that he's asked is going after paragraphs and information within this document. How many pages is this, Derek? This is our employee.
So it's pretty large. This is 102 pages, which contains a ton of information about, what we do at Decisions, all our policies. It contains everything in one place for us.
Yeah, and again, this is just our employee handbook. I think every company, you all have gobs of SOPs, policies, procedures. As I mentioned, in manufacturing, there's tons of them. Every piece of equipment, every process that you need to start up, you can actually take all of these things and turn them into interactive um, bots to be easily accessible and queried. And that's the whole value proposition here. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so for this piece, I mean, like the very first piece of it is we actually take the document, we split it by section or sentence, and then we store it in a local database that, this is how the whole chat function works. So while looking at this dashboard, we have the ability to communicate with the information that's already within the database. So I could ask a couple of questions. What is our company's mission? You can see within a matter of seconds, milliseconds, it responds. And the cool piece about this whole process, it responds with an answer, which is actually text within the document. So again, it's not hallucinated by any means. And then it gives you an overall confidence score of how close of a match this question is to this answer. So this answer right here, if we actually go back and look at the document, it's an image. This is an image within the PDF. So we have the ability to even get text off of images, which is very powerful, this type of use case. So kind of jumping back, I'll just ask a few questions. And you can see that it's very fast. It's in a matter of milliseconds response. It gives you an overall confidence score. So it's something to kind of keep in mind. The confidence score is how similar is the question to the answer. And this was the top result that the database returned for us. And then as I continue to ask questions, you'll see that the chat history will expand over time. Kind of just
Yeah,
jumping.
another thing I'll point out while Derek is asking it more questions is that in the previous webinars we've shown how you can use this within like Slack or Teams. So you can have a web interface like we're showing here, but you can also connect it to a Slack channel or a Teams channel and have it there for easy access for your employees.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our past one we did Slack. So this is a fully embedded decision solution. It has all the dashboards, the functionality, has the local model, has the local database too. So I'll continue to ask some questions here and kind of go over a few things. So the question I asked, how many hours of PTO do we get each year? Within the first year, we get 12 hours each month, 144 for the whole year. This is as a newer employee, and as you could see that, the longer you're with us, the more PTO you could get over time. And again, this is coming directly from the document itself. So pretty high confidence score of the similarity between the two. And a lot of times, these are slightly lower, but they're still good answers. These are the right answers. And, after testing this for a little bit, you do want to kind of put in like a threshold. And what I mean by that is if you ever see this confidence score below a specific threshold, for example, like 50%, you would have more of a generic response. And that's something that I'll get into on the admin side of things.
Yeah, and Derek, we had a good question here. The question is, could the system find inconsistencies in the policies or contradictory statements? And the answer to that is yes. If your policies, and in fact, we debated showing like the three or four closest matches. So, in a previous example that we showed, you could show several of the closest examples and find where those were in the original text. So if we did do that in this example, you could see the three closest matches, for example, and then determine which one is the best fit for the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. In this example, it's only returning the best result that it found. There is potential to modify this a bit too. But as you kind of continue asking some of these questions, I'll just ask a few so you can kind of see the overall behavior of how this works. how well it's actually answering the questions with a high confidence score. So something simple, who is eligible to participate, mainly people that are full-time here with that decisions. And kind of just going down, I'll ask a few more questions and then we'll go into the admin side of things. So what is our company's 401k match contributions? So you could see that it's actually pulling back the exact sentence within the document that explains our overall contributions to the dollar and what is the max percentage rate with the overall confidence score. So this is slightly lower than the rest, but it's still the right answer. So the threshold in this example, would still be greater than 50%.
Yeah, and the neat thing with this tech is that you can ask the question as a human would ask it, and it finds the appropriate answers within the document that may not be typed out the same way. So I think we're all used to SQL search, where you have to get very specific. You got to get the exact word right, or it won't find the place in the paragraph. but in these examples, it's getting the gist of the question and finding the appropriate answer and returning the exact text.
Yeah, it's finding like the relationship between the question and answer. So there are certain models out there that are really good at doing this kind of retrieval from a document where someone's asking a question and answer, and it just makes these embedding models just so much better.
So,
So,
Derek, the question came up, yeah, can we show the answer in the documentation? So maybe that,
yeah,
can you flip?
absolutely. So why don't we focus on the 401k? So the employees, what is our 401k match? So if I kind of scroll down, let me find it. We do have a 401k section. So here it is. Let me zoom in a little bit. You could see that it responded with this sentence. The way we're actually splitting this document up is by sentence. So when I ask a question, it's going to actually pull back the most relevant sentence within this document. Some documents may be different. It worked really well for this one. We tried a couple of different theories and this worked really well. So you can see when I asked, what is our 401k match contribution? It responded with this sentence: employees are eligible, to the 50% to 50 cent to the dollar up to 6%. So just going back, you could see that here as well. And even if we wanted to continue to look through the document, like how many hours of PTO do we get each year? I believe we have a PTO section.
Yeah, and again, this use case, it's not going to answer questions outside of this document. And if it doesn't find it, I think we've set a threshold um, of 50%, and then it'll tell you that it can't find the answer.
Yeah, that is correct. It'll have more of a generic response. And as an admin within Decisions too in this product, you have the ability to set that very easily, and it'll make the changes right away. So with the PTO question I asked, you could see it actually pulled back this exact sentence as the answer and the overall confidence score. So you could see that right here. So we clean up the content just a little bit just to make it a little more presentable. And then you can see that this actual question answer had a very high confidence score.
Yeah, and one thing Derek had planned to add, we ran out of time, was a link to the sentence. So you could create a link and click over into the document to find section, because it's also helpful to maybe read the whole paragraph, or instead of because honestly, I don't even know where our employee manual lives within the company. But if it was a chatbot on Slack and then I could link to it, it's just a much easier interaction for employees.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll ask a few more questions and then we'll jump into the admin side of things and look at the back end. A common question that may come up is about our parental leave. So you can kind of see how it would respond. So this is actually the content. Granted, some of the content may need to be cleaned, but overall very high confidence score. And then a common thing that happens with chatbots, you kind of want to put some policies in place when people are interacting with chatbots, so especially like ChatGPT, if you ask, any like offensive content, maybe copyright material, ChatGPT will respond with a message that, um, it won't give you any response to it. It'll pretty much cut the conversation off. So within decisions, we have the ability to use our rule engine to do something very similar. So if people are typing in specific keywords, maybe phrases, we can create a rule to flag these. And in return, it can create a assignment to like the HR group, for example. And the overall goal here is really to put a policy in place for, abusing or searching negative content with these chatbots. So this might be a funny example. We were just joking around, but the key word that we wanted to flag here was the New York Jets. So the question is, when will the New York Jets win the Super Bowl? So by clicking enter, you could see that it does not save the question. And granted, you could have an admin or someone on the business side that actually puts these keywords in the rule. It will not save the question and spit out a generic response. And I'll show you how that's all set up, how it's really easy to maintain, add to, and then what that overall assignment looks like there.
And the other thing we could do is set a rule for the confidence score, such that if, let's say, there is a question that's asked below a certain score and we don't have an answer for it, maybe there's a lot of employees who are having questions that aren't covered, right? And maybe we need HR, in this example, HR to create policies or answers for those kinds of questions that people are asking. And then they would get an assignment to add that to the document, to the database. We did get a question, Derek, about the confidence score. Maybe you
Yeah.
could talk about where that's coming from.
Yeah, it's a great question. So in this example, where we're storing, essentially how the whole process works is we take this text, the question, we run it through our embedding model, and then we actually store it into a vector database. Our vector database is Postgres. When you interact with these vector databases, you're able to find the similarity between two embeddings. So the question is one embedding, while the content or the answer is the second embedding. And you find how close of a distance between the two vectors that it is, and that produces a similarity score. That similarity score is out of 100%, and it will give you, this percentage right here. So this is saying that this question is very close to this content with their vectors, and it will produce the score automatically for you. So a lot of vector databases do this.
And Derek, we had a question just now. Does the customer have the ability to train these chatbot on-prem without exposing data outside? And the answer to that is yes. And
Yep.
everything we're showing you today has been trained and produced right on Derek's laptop. So nothing is going out to ChatGPT or Google Bard. This is all possible within a walled garden.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another couple questions, Derek. Okay, there was a question about, can you ask follow-up questions based on previous answers, and how do you maintain such sessions per user? Let me take a stab there. You can see here we're saving the history of this current session, and there's previous sessions. So if you start a new session in this example, we have we're saving all of the history of all of the question and answer. Also, in this use case, each question is independent. So there's not a relationship to the previous question. If you asked a question, it's just trying to find the information in the document. So it works a little differently than a typical large language model where you might have a conversation about a topic. This is strictly asking a question to find information within a document.
Yeah, that is correct. Like if you wanted to do a follow-up question, like maybe you're asking, about, a specific leave, you would have to type it out. And if you wanted to follow up to that question, you would pretty much type the same thing with the different information that you're looking for. So yes, it is independent. It's not really a direct conversational tool of capturing that overall history. But it works very well, especially if you type out a good question.
Okay, there was one question was, yeah, what happens if you ask a question not relevant to the document? You kind of saw it there. Yeah, let's ask it a question completely unrelated.
Was that who won the Super Bowl in 2022?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it did come back with. So it's saying that this was pretty close to that. So if I just said
Oh,
like Wolves and Jim. Nope, well, it's still coming back. So if I went back and updated the confidence score and then asked the same question, you'll see that it will respond with a generic response. Let's do that.
yeah. So
All right.
yeah, this confidence score you can tweak and play because after a lot of Q&A, you might realize, um, let's ask it again, that same question.
Yep, let me
Because
do
now you
it.
set the confidence limit at 55. This is always dangerous, Derek, doing live.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it took effect right away. So let me see.
Um, okay, there was a question about multiple languages, specifically around where you have Canadian documents that are in both English and French.
Yep.
So maybe, Derek, if you could, I guess if the text, you could do that two ways, right? Either two different documents, or let's say the one document has both French and English. The vector doesn't care, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if the text is actually, um, so you could do it by like English text. There's models that are very specific to English text, but there's also models out there like open source that do handle different languages such as like Chinese, Canadian, French, whatever it might be. So you could almost have a specific model that handles that specific language. But for the most part, it would almost, you could still try it. It still may work, but there are models out there that would probably be more preferable with a different language.
Yeah, and there's a question about which vector databases are supported. We support all. I mean, the examples we're showing you today are using Postgres. Previously, we showed Pinecone, but there's no, just as in like SQL, there's no limitation to which vector database you could use.
Yeah, exactly. We've used Pinecone in the past, and again, today we're using Postgres.
All right, Derek, I think you started to cover it, but let's jump over to the admin. So
Yeah. All right, so this is the admin dashboard. As an admin within Decisions, you have the ability to come to this dashboard to kind of, maintain everything that's going on within that chat feature. So high level, we could create categories. Categories represent, different topics, maybe different departments, and then you could store various files on this actual category. So this could be useful if you wanted like certain people only to interact with specific categories. From here, you have the ability to add new files. You have like your normal CRUD actions to edit, delete, or even create. So when adding a new file, you have that action where you could upload multiple files in here. So for example, if I wanted to upload additional HR document, and then this would embed that directly to the vector database. And what the file relation is more of a description of this actual document or documents that are related to this category. So, I could just do this as an example. I want to embed it. It'll take a couple of minutes to process, and then this would be available to use within the chat. So upon save, you can see that, I'll get a confirmation once this has actually been added to the vector database, but you can see now that there's 2 files within here. So we'll come back to that, kind of just going through. There's a way to monitor, the question and answers that are happening over a period of time. So high level, you could see, the different KPIs about the categories, the number of embedded documents we have, the overall questions asked, and what is the average confidence score. So you could kind of go through this list as an admin, see what people are asking, what's being responded. You could see the confidence score to see if you need to make any changes, and you could see it, by day. So there's different options here, but really the purpose of this is for an admin to be able to review the questions, make sure everything's working properly, it's responding correctly, and see if there's any maintenance that needs to be done.
Yeah. So what, and Derek, how long did all this take you to build?
Overall, like all the dashboards together was maybe a day or two. The big piece was really focusing on how the chatbot works well. That process, I would say take about 2 to 3 days to kind of start to finish. It's about 24 hours.
So I think the point here is, all this was built in Decisions with a model from was it Hugging Face? You had downloaded one of the models onto your laptop. Is that right?
Correct. That is correct.
So using Decisions to build the interface, do the orchestration with the model. So Decisions is saving it in a vector database and managing the orchestration and the creation of this app. Yeah, I think Derek, why don't you jump to the back end and show us how all this was put together?
Yeah, absolutely. Once right before that, one thing I wanted to show is the maintenance piece. Again, you're able to maintain this at a high level, and the keyword that we saw flagged earlier, we have the ability for a business user to be able to come in here and edit this rule directly. So you can see as I click the rule, edit rule, it actually jumps right into the rule designer where I could add, different keywords to flag. So this is like the question being asked, and if it contains this specific text, I could flag it. I could assign it to a department, and then provide what that flag keyword is. So essentially, this is the input, this is the rule, this is the output of the rule. Really easy to maintain. Once I make these changes, they're actually live within that workflow. And just to show that task really quick, so when I actually typed in New York Jets, it created a task. So in this use case, I'm logged in as the HR user. You'll see that I'll have a new task in my inbox to complete. So this is default within Decisions. I could review it. I could see the name of the person, the email, the question asked, and what was flagged. This is more just for awareness. There might not be any appropriate steps here. That user could add some comments and complete it.
Yeah, and different documents that you have or policies or procedures, you may want somebody to review, or, if a user has a question about the policy, or there's a lack of a policy, you can set those rules, keywords, and assignments to different people in the organization to take care of the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Gordon, let's jump into the back end. All right, so the first thing I want to show is that very first piece of it. It's actually extracting the text from the document. So this is the workflow. When I hit that action to add new files to that category, for each file I upload, it will actually kick off this process. What we do is we extract the text from the PDF. We're using PDFs in this example. We could also do Word documents. We could do Excel. There's a lot more we could do. But for this example, we extract the text from the PDF using our default OCR steps. We then split the text into sentences. So this worked really well for this use case. This might not work for all. There's different methods that we could apply to determine how best to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point, because some of the documents, a sentence structure makes sense, some of them paragraphs. So there's a little bit of trial and error for each document. If you're doing insurance policies or Q&A documents, might be handled a little differently. So there's a little bit of art and a little bit of science here.
Yeah, absolutely. Once we actually get all the text into sentences, we'll go through each item, and that's where we start our embedding process. So I'll just show you quickly. We actually created a step. So this is actually the local model that's doing the embedding. If we were using ChatGPT, we would have a separate step that looked like such. So you can see this is fully local to my computer. I'm on my local host. No API calls happening with this embedding model whatsoever.
Derek, somebody asked if they could see what an embedding looks like.
Yeah,
Would you be able to type a question into the flow?
yeah. So this embedding model we use, we're able to say that this is actually content or it's a question, and we have this Boolean check mark. But if I typed in, text, so testing 1, 2, 3, and then I run this, so you can see how this step works. It's going to pass in 2 inputs, the text itself, the query, and then this is the vector output. So again, it's a high dimensional vector. This use case, it's 1,024 dimensions. ChatGPT is 1,536, but it's really just the numbers, and it's trying to find the relation in the text, in the words and the characters to determine what this vector is. So you can see it's very large.
And there's been some questions about, what can we input Access database or Excel data? The answer to all of that is yes. In fact, we
Yep.
did a previous webinar doing a Q&A, um, turning old RFPs into a Q&A bot. And a lot of that data came from Excel. Any database can be pulled and turned into a chatbot like this. We did a previous webinar using Salesforce data. So pulling it out of Salesforce, creating a bot of data in just the same way. This webinar, it's manuals. This example is employee manuals, but it could be SOPs, could be insurance policies, could be anything, any type of manual.
Yeah. If you get text from it, we could do it. You could have different processes in place to handle those different types, like Excel, PDF, from an external data source and so forth. But yeah.
Another question here, is this model prone to hallucinations? And as I mentioned earlier, this example here, it is not prone to hallucination because we're simply returning the original text in the document. So all we're using these large language models for is to create the embeddings. All the rest is just search, and we're saving the original text as metadata. So that's regular data in a database, and we're returning that regular data. So for those use cases where it's very important that you're using the original text, this is a good way to do that.
Yeah, that's correct. And I can jump into, the last piece of this is we then store all the information in the Postgres database. So this is like Gordon said, it stores the embedding itself, it stores the paragraph text, and any additional metadata that we need. So on the query side of things, or Gordon, did you have anything else about the extract?
No,
Very good.
no.
All right, so on the query side of things, this is actually the workflow that gets kicked off when you hit enter after typing a question. It first goes through the process of determining if there is a keyword. So that was the rule that we were just editing. If so, it will send out that assignment, but it won't kill the process. It will continue, so you can continue to ask questions. It will do this in an async fashion, so behind the scenes. So we do the same process.
I wanted to set some context to what you're looking at here. This is the decisions flow designer. So this is part of the no-code decisions platform. All of this is created with drag and drop steps that are part of the decisions no-code platform. So as you could see, and as Derek has walked through, this is all decisions, coordinating, orchestrating, creating the logic. There's a different designer tool to build all of the dashboards. Derek, maybe you could just jump into one of those, just show, what you used to build the dashboards that they saw.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our portal designer. This is, as an admin, I can come here and kind of see all the folders, and this is actually the dashboard we were just looking at. So I have the ability to edit this page, and this is essentially our page editor. So you can see it's a drag and drop. I can move things around. I have the ability to look up different components that we offer within our platform and easily drag and drop it, do some customization as needed. The
Oh,
page
and Derek,
is good.
we have another question for you.
Yeah,
Somebody asked about your laptop specs that can support everything that we're looking at. Now, I know you have a bit of a beefy laptop.
yeah. So it's a great question. Something that I've noticed with the embedding models, they don't take a lot of horsepower. You don't need large specs for the embedding. But if you wanted to, store a conversational large language model, like for example, OpenAI, you need a lot of horsepower to run that. You need a lot of RAM. It's almost 100 gigabytes of RAM to run that. So smaller models, not a problem. Larger models, you need more specs, absolutely.
But everything we're showing you today, I think, what do you have, like 32 gig of RAM on your laptop?
That is correct, and it runs
All
very
right.
quickly. I
Yeah.
don't even need
So,
that much RAM for this process.
right, everything it's basically laptop material.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We're just about out of time. I think we've covered just about everything we'd planned to. I think the key message here is that with the decisions platform, you can not only automate or expose information to your employees and build it quickly in the no code software development platform that we've got. But in the example here, you can keep this in your walled garden such that you're not making external calls, but yet taking data that's buried in your documentation and turning that over to employees to quickly access. Our previous webinar, we showed how to connect this up to Slack or Microsoft Teams. And I'll make another plug. Next week or 2 weeks from today, we will be showing how to take meeting minutes that are typically saved by, Zoom, Gong, Microsoft Teams meetings. These all have the capability now to create transcripts from meetings. And we've got about 10 different use cases to show you what we can do with those transcripts. So with that, I think we'll call it. I thank you all for coming today. And if you have any questions or would like to see more about how you can build within decisions, please sign up for a demo online at go right to the homepage. And thank you for all the applause and the thumbs up. Wonderful Zoom meeting capability there. All right. Thanks all, and have a happy Thursday.